Good morning. Hey, on Monday we are in social studies. Here's the deal. You can definitely open up to the back of your book. We're still in those, R8 and R9 pages with the U.S. map, but we're going to kind of divide up the United States, not state by state, not 50 lessons, but rather region by region. And if you look way up in the northeast, if you start in the middle and you go north and you go east or northeast, we're going to talk about those states first. A lot of times they're called the New England states. We're going to find out why here soon. But we're not just talking about Maine and Massachusetts. We're talking about Maine through Massachusetts. Those 6 states right there. And, let me just show you where. These red states are the 6 that we're talking about. By the end of this week here, guys, you're going to be tested on both the state names and the state capitals of each state. So I'm going to give you a blank map of these 6 states on Friday, and you're going to need to write in the name and the state capital of each state. So for instance, you might be able to name Maine, but do you know the capital city of Maine? Augusta. Anyway, we're going to go through that all week here, but let me show you this. In this map of the New England states, it just shows you, and by the way, all these little dashes here, those are the counties. Those are the counties of each state, but it shows you what groups first settled there. Now, when I say first settled there, I'm talking about the European groups. We, of course, had all kinds of tribes of Native Americans come in here, and when the different groups from Europe came over on their boats, this is the first place that they settled. You can see that for most of this map, it's red, right? The English settled in those places, but we also have green, the Irish, and blue, the French, and the Italians, and the Portuguese. Not many Portuguese, but all these different groups came over. They were either fleeing, religious persecution. They were getting treated unfairly in Europe because of what they believed, so they came over here. Or they just wanted to start a new life, and they came over to what they called the New World in North America, the New England states. But again, of course, there's Native American tribes, this whole area for centuries before that. But I don't know if kind of tying in here, we have some major sports teams. There's a city down here that's called Boston, right in here. And if you know Boston's basketball team, they're called the Boston Celtics. And just, kind of a fun thing about the Irish is they have that 4-leaf clover, right? And they have the leprechaun holding the basketball for the Celtics logo. But you say, why in the world are they called the Celtics? Well, that's really another name for Irish, right? And that's why they have a leprechaun and they have a 4-leaf clover. Those are all symbols of Irish. So it's talking about in that area, that's where all the Irish settled. Now, also in this place, actually it's in a city called Foxborough, but you have a pretty major football team, the New England Patriots. And I know that England wasn't the main group that settled here, but this whole area was called New England because, as you can see, they were the biggest group, or they had the most people come in. And yes, there are English all over, but right away the English were more up in Maine, New Hampshire, and Vermont, but this whole area is called New England, and that's why. And you can see in this map, you can see some of the very first English and European settlements. We have Plymouth in 1620, and Portsmouth in 1624, and Salem in 1626, Boston right here, 1630, and all that type of stuff there. So, at any rate, you can see some of the oldest actual cities with, structures that stayed there forever in this area. Now, I know this map is busy. I know this map has a lot in it, but as we talked about a couple weeks ago with being on water, notice how most of these cities, most of them are either right on the ocean or they're on rivers that lead to the ocean. It's not a secret. Obviously, before we had pipes and running water, everybody needed to be by water. And so that's why these cities are right on water or the ocean with rivers running through this so they could have fresh water. But this area isn't necessarily known for big cities, except for Boston, but there are plenty of cities here. Now, what we're going to learn about later in the week is this is really a lot known for tourism. Vermont is called the Green Mountain State, and there's a lot of hiking and hunting and places where you can just be in the wilderness. Honestly, you start going above this line, if you cut Maine in half, there's hardly any power lines up in this whole area of Maine. It's a lot of wilderness. So this just shows you some of the bigger cities in this area. Now, here's what I'm going to ask you to do for your assignment today. Again, in preparations for Friday's test. If you notice all these cities here, these are the capital cities of each state. Your job, and I'm sorry it's a little bit blurry here, you might need to look at, and hopefully it's clear on your worksheet or in the map in your book, but your job is on these lines to write the state name. Yes, you may use a book, and you should use a book. And yes, I'm asking you to spell it right. But Friday, when we have the test, you're going to have a blank map just like this, and you cannot use your book. So this is getting in preparation. And some of these states are so small, I don't want you to squish in the state names. That's why they kind of have these longer lines that you can write on. But your assignment, fill in state names there, guys. Hey, Lord's blessings to you as you praise your Savior.